Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. Today's video I'm going to work on a few bougainvillea. But first I thought I'd just show off this aloe plant. It has some nice little blooms on here. Thought this was a good example to just kind of point out the difference between house plants and the plants that you can keep outside if you can. I actually kept this inside about 4 years. When I bought it, it's some kind of a hybrid, you know, that has a name like Orange in it or something, Orange Crush or something like that maybe, I'm not really even sure. I noticed that it was always losing the orange color and it was turning greener and greener. And this one and then this one here were just getting bigger and bigger and kind of like stretching way out. And about the time I figured out that I was kind of giving up on house plants just with the fungus gnats and some of the other issues that I found from having house plants, I put it outside, and it's been about a year and a half now, and here it is with its first bloom. You can see they're kind of coloring back up, getting that red color to them again, and then we even got some pups showing up down in the Alright, and now to the subject of the day. It's one of a couple of bougainvilleas I'm going to work today. I'm going to make a long story as short as I can. When I first moved here, there's one of the neighbors that they never cut their grass, don't trim their bushes. I mean, their pool is half full, which wouldn't be so bad other than it's like half full of like green algae and mosquitoes and stuff and everything. I got these 3 bougainvilleas, you know, that they grow really fast. And, you know, you see them all around the yards down here. People use them for privacy screen and everything. So I planted them along the fence there, thinking that they'd grow big and obviously just kind of block that house out a little bit for me. We live in one of these neighborhoods where the telephone poles run in the backyard. And one day, a guy came and knocked at the door and asked if he minded if he worked in the backyard or whatever. I said, sure. And then I was actually back there talking to him, and he's stepping all over, actually, this bush. This one was the one that's closest to the telephone poles. You know, I'm like, hey man, you're stepping all over one of my bushes there or whatever. And he says, you know, sorry, and I couldn't really blame him because they were kind of hard to see because they were so spindly and small when I, you know, first bought them. And I did, you know, after that happened, I kind of noticed that this one was in the worst shape. And then the next one I'm going to do was like a little bit better. And then I still have one that's in the ground. Now that it's just out there by itself, I may wind up digging it up one day. But it's in the ground. I mean, it actually has a trunk on there, probably about like that now, simply because it's not getting walked on and everything. This one was the one that was closest to the telephone poles, so this one was the one getting walked on the most. You know, because of the unique situation or whatever, you know, they've actually been out there for a while, and there's lichen growing on the trunk. I always thought that was pronounced lichen, but I guess the other day I figured out that's pronounced lichen. So, you know, it has like an aged look, even though it's not really all that thick. When I did notice that those guys were walking on my bushes out there or whatever, I went ahead and dug these 2 up. This one and the other one I'm going to work on next in March of this year. Here it is, December 28th or whatever, and I've really done almost nothing to it. This one I did prune just a little here and there. It was getting so leggy, you know, that I did prune just a little. The other one that I'm going to bring in next, I haven't pruned at all. I'm gonna prune it up today. I did want to save these flowers, and again, kind of point out that on bougainvillea, flowers actually that white part in the center, and these are just kind of like the flower petals. They're actually called bracts, but they blow right off. And even though those are the different colors of the bougainvillea, almost all bougainvillea have the white blooms are kind of yellowish white, and then the different colors are actually called bracts and are not the blooms. I'm going to go ahead and get in here and just really shorten up the long branches, and then just take out a bunch that just don't belong. At least it's regained a little bit of health. I'm going to try to come up with something eventually where I can kind of take advantage of the fact that it's got that lichen growing on there. Been reading up on bougainvillea a little more, and I came across an article that said thing to do with Bougainvillea is prune and wire, prune and wire, prune and wire. You know, when I first got into bonsai, I really had no desire to ever even use wire. I've since become convinced that you don't have to. I mean, plenty of people still do clip and grow or whatever. But to get some effect on a lot of trees, I do think that the wire can be very helpful. But with these guys, I don't think so. Not for me. There's the thorns and just how small the branching is. See that almost, those two were coming right out of the same spot. It almost makes me want to take off that whole branch, but I think I'm going to leave it because this just got a little age look to it too. Can always take it out later. Can't change your mind about taking out something after it's already gone. And so I think after today, I'm going to go ahead and just start pruning it a little more aggressively. And see how that turns out. And now I'll just get a closer look here. A couple more of these. Dead parts coming out there. And I think that's all I'll do for now. Try to, in the future, try to keep it a little more pruned back. And part of me thinks that I'm just going to have to make it, a little broom style tree of some sort. Looks better from that side, but it's leaning that way. Of course, I can always change the angle. This is, the reason why I actually put it in a pot this small is actually I wasn't really sure this one was going to make it, but it definitely was the worst of the three. But I've also given some thought to perhaps making it an exposed root of some sort. You can see there that it's pretty well pot bound. Got a screen in there. But the bougainvillea get really thin roots, and they say it's hard on these to get like one particular part of the trunk to fatten up or whatever. But I do kind of that looks interesting, and it does give it a little bit of taper there or whatever. There's almost no taper in here, which is one of the reasons why I left this branch, just in the hopes that it'll kind of fatten that guy up a little bit. But, kind of saved it from just getting trampled on, back in March, so what is that, 8-9 months ago? I think that one can go. Probably that one too. Shorten that guy up just a little bit. Alright, and so here is the bigger one of those two, and of course this one had a lot more health when I first dug it up, but also the reason why it exploded with so much growth is I didn't have a screen in the bottom of this one, and I just had it sitting on the ground. I let it get, it actually has 3 pretty big roots coming out of there, but that one really big one. But go ahead pop those off. It's not repotting season, but cutting an escape root isn't really going to hurt anything. And then let's see, it still doesn't want to sit down right here. Let's see if I can. Well, this thing's such a mess here. I think I'm going to actually try to clean it up a little bit before I go fixing the rest of that problem with the pot there. That was just the escape root. I didn't quite cut it off exactly flush, so it's not sitting down right. I am going to try to put it in there and turn a little bit before I put it back outside anyway. Anyway, this is the second one. I'll show you a few of those pictures the day I dug it up. I took a few more of this one. I thought this one might make it. It's got some interesting movement. I was hoping I'd get some ramification off of where I had some of that interesting movement, but it just really kind of exploded with that growth. And again, that could be the difference between having the root into the ground or just in the pot. If we just looked at that other, it had so much smaller, finer roots, and then this one has those three huge ones coming out of there. And so I'm guessing if you keep it pot bound, it gets the smaller, finer ones that kind of wrap up and just circle the pot, where this one just sensed that, you know, it could get into the ground there and just went with it, grew super long, which in turn also gave it super long growth here. So I'm going to try, I want to fix that pot angle and everything, of course, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of make this thing a little more manageable. I don't know if it's, you can see a couple blooms here, just kind of hanging out. It's been a few months. I say a few months, it's been a few weeks since it was like in peak bloom. And that branch really does. Some of these shoots really are long, overlapping each other. Some of these that I'm cutting some of the length off, I'm probably going to cut all the way off here sooner or later. Right now I'm just kind of doing it so I can move it around a little bit easier. And man, this thing has a ton of thorns. Of course, these lower ones, I'm going to take those, I'm going to go ahead and take that off all the way right now. This, I did that video on the olive tree the other day. It's amazing, I broke that off when I was struggling to get that olive tree up out of the ground. I actually think, and I've actually done it before, but I think on a lot of these bougainvillea, you can take and break the branch, and if you just leave it hanging there, it'll start growing again. The thing is, it doesn't completely heal it up if you expose the cambrium or inside wood, whatever you want to call it. I mean, cambrium is the what's right between the bark and the wood, but so I'll go ahead and take that off. But yeah, I've actually done some where if you want to get a little movement in there or whatever, you just kind of bend it, you hear it crack, and then leave it, and it'll grow like that. Won't be doing any with any of this today, because all this I'm going to be cutting off most of that type of growth with the plan of starting to prune this a lot more often. See any of these other super lower ones there. So now we're getting down to a little more of what the shape was there when I first did dig it up. It's got some movement. It actually has, I tried to look up to see if this is a thing or not, but this actually looks like a knee, like you would see on a bald cypress. But it doesn't appear as if that's a trait that's, you know, desired or common in bougainvillea, but obviously, I mean, it's way too much part of the stump to take it out. It's actually what's giving it, from some certain angles, it gives it a more of an illusion of taper, even though it's just really that big knee kind of sticking up there or whatever. let's see. There we go. I got it up just a little bit, and I'll turn it in the pot and just let it rest back down. Now, not only can I have it sitting there a little bit more steady while I'm trying to do a little work to it, but also when I put it back outside, it won't get that escape root again so quickly. This time, you know, I've let it sit since March. This time I won't let it sit anywhere near that long. So as I look, I mean, this one, the other one kind of looked the same from all angles, so I don't really want to think about a front or anything. This could be the front with that knee showing up there, if you could even call it a knee. You got a general flow line going like that. But then you have this one main trunk that kind of goes away from the viewer, starts coming back towards the viewer again. And then this one kind of coming off that way. I could take that whole main trunk off, which is one of my considerations today. I could just do that, take that main trunk that was kind of going away from the viewer off, and leave this as the front, and then just kind of finish pruning down those other two. Or I could have this as the front, and you got this main trunk line here, you know, it has the movement, and then it comes up in this one and comes straight at you, which really isn't supposed to happen. And you know, I could cut it back a little bit and make it a little more leaning. But right along those lines, that is the thickest one. I feel like maybe that's what the taproot was feeding, and it was just growing just that straight out or whatever. And so I'll take that off. Should help me quite a bit with trying to build a little taper in the tree and everything too. And now let's take a look at that from the front again. And so now you've got, you know, main trunk, you know, going that way, coming off this way. There's two usable branches here. And then just kind of going off here. And we'll see what happens. It does have like a little more taper now to it. Look at it from this side now. Of course, it's got that big scar there. But let's see, I am going to, I did that initial prune down just to really make it a little more manageable where I could move around in here without getting hit by a thorn every other second. But now, I'm going to cut it way back. Bougainvillea, you can prune right to the trunk and it's fine. Just out of habit, I like to leave a leaf on almost everything when I'm pruning it. So I'm leaving some leaves as I get in there. Some of these spots that I am leaving a leaf in, I may go back in a minute and just decide I was being a little too conservative and cut it back a little bit further. I'm just going to wait and see what it looks like. Again, it's the end of December here in Florida. But remember, this is the subtropics. We are heading into winter, or, you know, not heading into winter, we're about a week into it now, but we don't really get a winter here, so I'm not worried about doing this heavy pruning this time of year in the least. Doesn't leave much on that side, and then of course, a lot of that's now coming right straight back at me. I don't know, that may actually help balance the tree out a little bit, allowing that to go back that way. So I'd have to cut this main branch off that's going straight. Like to keep some of this branching here and allow the main tree to kind of come back that way. I mean, we're looking at the back side now, but you know, tree coming up, moving this way, going that way and giving off a branch, coming this way, giving off a branch, and then eventually going back that way. Some of these that are coming off the side, I'll leave. Some of the ones coming straight up I'll take out. This one's straight up. Well, I thought ficus trees could get a little crazy with the crossing branches and everything. This thing just grows all over top of it, so. Alright, and then last, but certainly not least, we got this guy here, probably one of the best looking things in my yard right now. Hard to believe it's a week into wintertime. But I actually did a video on this probably about 2 months ago. If you want to go back and take a look at it, I talk a little more about the history. I got this as a project tree. It's regaining its health quite a bit. The other one, I actually have one other project tree, and then another one that just happens to be this color that I did the video all on the same time with. They're both doing fine, but neither one of them look quite as shocking as this one does right now. This one's really regaining its health quite well. And basically I was just kind of including in this video just to show it off a little bit. But I am going to go ahead. Generally speaking, maintenance pruning would be just pruning back the blooms. And again, these are, those two I just did are magenta. These have, you know, again, still the yellowish white blooms in there with the more magenta bracts. And the other one had the purple bracts. But I'm going to go ahead and cut that back, and then this just has a little bit of crossing going on. I left some of it when I pruned it in the other video just because I was hoping it would just regain health, and that was my main goal at that point. But you can see it's regained plenty of health. Some people say that you should stop them from blooming because the blooms take energy out of it. I think it allows it to complete its life cycle. I like to go ahead and let it bloom. Plus, I think it's got plenty of energy here. That one, I even talked about that on the other video. I got this part of a trunk coming off this way, coming up this way. I was hoping it would sprout a branch that way, and of course it came right over here and crossed all the other branches. I mean, I say of course. It just really means if I'm going to stick with clip and grow, I have to be a little more vigilant. Alright, and then this. The smaller one of these bloomed a little earlier and lost them a little earlier, and those, you know, because I've only had the unhealthy ones like in my yard that were getting walked on all the time or whatever. I really, you know, haven't had a chance to observe them all that much. But when eventually, like, if I would have left these, this was about the end of their life cycle anyway. That's why I'm just kind of cutting them off. But when they first blow off, they actually leave these little stems, and it'll just look like dead little twigs poking up. And you can even see where this is just getting some new leaves right at the base there a little bit. And doing what I'm doing now should, you know, hopefully encourage a little bit of back budding. I really like this tree. I'm hoping I can really make something of it one day. I've got this little hollow here. Every now and again I just kind of reach in there and make sure I don't feel anything rotting or anything. Like a little Keebler elf could live in there or something, right? Got some weeds growing here. It gets suckers. That is actually not a weed, that's a sucker coming off the stump. But those will actually just cut a couple suckers off with the last one I have growing in the ground out there. And it got like 5 feet tall. It shot way up higher than the rest of it. It'll suck the energy right out of the tree. So I cut those off as they go. And it comes up here, it's got nice taper, it's got the hollow on the one side, and then it looks like it was just bent over right here. And then it has this huge knob of stuff coming out here, which is all just a big mess of crossing branches. And I keep thinking like I need to reduce that a bunch, but that's really all there is. I am going to start though getting some of these dead chunks. This whole little piece there was dead with a live piece coming off the side. This piece is coming right out of the crotch of another branch, and it was crossing with that one. May help the whole crossing effect. It's another little dead piece here. This is probably going to become the apex, and this one's kind of growing right into it. Pop that off. And that dead tip along with it. And sometimes when these branches are small and viney, I'll look at them and I'll say, well, you know, and I think I say it in this original video with this guy, but, you know, let a vine be a vine. But man, when they get thicker like this and lignify, they are just a mess. So this whole piece here, I hate to lose it. I'm going to try to save this piece, but I think it's got to go. So it's just always going to be crossing there. And I don't think it was ever going to make any sense. And it's a huge knob right there. Talk about inverse taper. I don't know if you guys can really see that or not. Right there. Just a big knob. Got my knob cutters. And use them for what they're for. Yeah, I think that's all I really want to do for now. Again, keep that as the apex. I'd like to have that as the future front one day, just to show off that that hollow there. Thinking this piece kind of got left. And this one. And I'm going to go ahead and take these down too. Left a leaf there, but I don't know if at first I really intended to cut it back that deep, but I did. And, you know, not a bad spot to start over from. Have to try to start pruning it a little more aggressively, as long as I can see that it keeps its health. You know, if it starts losing its health again or anything, I'll go ahead and back off and just let it recover. But I think it'll back bud just fine from here. And it is still, you know, it's winter, but it's Florida, and this is actually when the Bougainvillea look their best. And they can survive a few zones north of us too. Or at least I know at least to 9A they'll survive. So it should be fine. And then really heading into spring, I should be able to just do a bunch of pruning on it as long as it just shows a ton of growth. And I completely expect it to. So should be good. Thanks for watching.